episode of Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
Well, I remembered how to plug in the mic and hit the intro and get the show going. And here we are. What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to Great Scott. It's your true crime Phil on Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. There's no doubt about that. And of course, this show, Great Scott, it's your true crime Phil, a show so good it happens every Friday. Scott Duffy is so good that I saw him yesterday. Just yesterday, Scott and I were at a Phillies game. So I'm in a completely loopy mood. I see the COE. She just entered the waiting room, and she's going to be putting some photos up. And thank you to everyone. I'm seeing the welcome backs. I cannot tell you how much I missed you guys. I also cannot tell you how delirious I am. I also cannot tell you. Excuse me, said Soda. I can't tell you how proud I am of Carm. Phil Waters, we're going to make an exception. It's you're wearing your slippers. It's 11 a.m. in Hawaii. You're on. I asked Scott Duffy, where is Phil Waters? And he said, aloha time. And here he is.
Well, yeah, a little bit to that, but it's been a very busy morning. I was just got out of trial on one case this week, and so I was talking to those lawyers, talking to another folks about another case, and anyway, so it's been.
Bill, do you have to get up early there to conduct business because things shut down here early?
Well, I'm behind 5 hours to Texas, and I don't really shut anything down. It's just that I don't answer the phone until I get up here. So, which means, I'm 5 hours behind everything going on there. So it all kind of went together here, and I still got other, pretty crazy. So sorry I'm late again, but it's a busy day here in Kapahau and Kohala. Yeah.
Look at this. Nikki Cuds. I met her on the New York City stop of the STS book tour. For those who are not familiar, I think most of you are. Carmen and I were on a 2-week book tour. Started off a little rocky and got smoother and smoother along the way. And I was just saying when Phil came on, I'm incredibly proud of Carm. She was a complete trooper. We went from Miami to New York. We did media. We went from New York to Boston, did our book signings in media. We came back to New York. We did media and a couple of book signings, or a book signing. And then we went to Toronto and did 2 book signings in media. And then we went to the city of brotherly love. And it was just yesterday, Phil Waters, that Scott Duffy and I were speaking of you because we were having dinner. And shout out to Philadelphia shoulder surgeon. I hope she pops in. She got Scott and I. This is why I always say best guest, better community. Philadelphia shoulder surgeon got Scott Duffy and I such good tickets, and she met us there that we were literally on TV every 5 seconds. Scott Duffy, she has sent me additional photos. And you and I appear to be having a good time. We're talking and laughing. And do you want to reveal what Alexis had with her?
Yeah, she had a big sign, so all your fans have those big signs. She definitely had a big sign, and she's a big Alec Bohm fan. And who isn't? Yeah.
Alec Bohm. She got a crush on one of the players, and she held up a sign. And we did not get his attention, but she did get the attention of the cameraman, because the cameraman kept putting her on. Bonnie Lee Lopez in chilly, now warm and humid Vermont. Joel, if you're exhausted, can you imagine how tired Carm is? I heard the two of you on an interview. Absolutely wonderful. Your book is going to be a bestseller. It's a great read. Thank you very much. Got an amazing feedback on the book. I'm completely out of my mind. It's just weird. I haven't been Look at this, Scott, right on cue. I don't want to make Phil jealous, but that is us on TV. That's it's a right-handed batter up. Look at it, and look who's right behind. I don't know which player that is, Scott. You might, but I don't. And that is Scott Duffy in the hat and the FBI glasses. All law enforcement wear those Oakley wraparounds. He had those on, and that's me to the left of Scott. And then here in Philly, what a beautiful turnout. Shout out to Booked Chestnut Hill. I thought Chestnut Hill was actually in the city of Philadelphia, which it is, but it's like suburbia. So we barely made it, but a beautiful bookstore. And that is the Philadelphia shoulder surgeon. And if you notice, she was gifted an FBI hat by the man who once ran the bureau, Scott Duffy. So there's the FBI hat. Phil, are you at all jealous that we were at a Phillies game last night, being that you're on the big island of Hawaii?
Playing Texas Rangers.
No.
Oh, yeah, it was the Texas Rangers. Not at all. Not an iota of jealousy in that body, but that's not how you run.
No. I would have liked to have been there to enjoy the fellowship with you all, but there's no sense of jealousy here. No.
Yeah, it was an amazing, and then I forgot there were so many little things along the way. If I may indulge for a moment, I'm sure I will get a couple of 1-stars saying I'm a narcissist, can't stop talking about myself in my book, and I hate you, and I hope I get those tonight because I will respond tonight, and I will respond with the deadly force of my tongue lashing, if you will. By the way, Scott, my mother has a crush on you. She says you're very handsome and just a sweetheart. And she even said to me, Carm is too worn out to be a crime con. But believe it or not, the COE and I are headed to Crime Con next week. I know Scott's going to be there. Phil is going to be wearing his slippers on the Big Island. Now, on the left there, you see Scott Duffy. No surprise, Carm thinks he's a handsome fella. That was the crowd, all of them behind us, suckers. And then on the right, in typical Scott Duffy fashion, earlier in the day, Scott Duffy had said to me, had anyone recognized you from STS? To which I said, no. So when I was walking out, the security man said, you look familiar. And I said, oh, do I? And he said, do you host that podcast? At which point I knew, because I'm no FBI agent, but I've got investigative skills, and I could see Scott Duffy laughing behind him. So we all had a good laugh. And there was something that what was I just going to say? There's so many little things from this trip that I'll remember as we go here. I had a moment, Phil Waters, of extreme positivity. Things just went so smoothly. So we're in Toronto, and I said to myself, wow, this is incredible. And I thought to myself, do I announce this to Carm or not? And I said, you know what? 2 more days, let me announce to Carm. So we're in the airport in Toronto. And I would meet people along the way, like in the security line. And I said, hey, I wrote a book about my mom. And they would usually like laugh and think I was joking. And then by the end, they were ordering it on Amazon, and they were excited to have met Carm. So I was annoying everyone, not just Carm. But we're in the airport in Toronto. Pearson is the airport. And I say to Carm the following: this trip's been amazing. So once in a lifetime experience, Carm. I'm proud of you. You made it. We're off to our last stop, Philadelphia. And lo and behold, we get to Philadelphia. I turn my phone on, and Phil, I got a notice from Air Canada that my luggage did not make it onto the flight. So now we're waiting for our Uber, and this woman next to us is with her husband, and she couldn't find her phone. And of course, she blamed it on the husband. And it was a great distraction for me, because that's something the COE would do to me. So she called him an idiot and told him to put on. By the way, I'm so curious if anyone is watching this for the first time, if they're just saying to themselves, what is going on? I'm always curious about that. But there's a Chestnut Hill in Boston. We were just discussing that because I'm at my sister's house, and my niece lives in Boston. So Phil and Scott, I'm in Philadelphia. I'm in the Uber line, and this woman is now young couple in her 30s, probably. She's now ripping her husband a new one, and they have a cute little French bulldog that just got out of its crate and is panting to death because it's 100 degrees and 200% humidity. And I thought the dog was going to like stroke out. So I'm kind of worried about the dog. And she says to him, "Where's my phone?" And he says, "I don't know. It's your phone." This is the exact conversation that the COE and I would have. And he said, "It's your phone." He said, and she said, "Well, you said you were going to like hold it." She blamed him immediately. So I was just loving every second of it. And she said at one point, "Find my phone." And he said, "What do you mean? I don't know where your phone is." She goes, "No, I mean the app, idiot. The Find Your Phone app," which is the COE again, would say the same thing. So this went on for like 25 minutes. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, they lost my luggage. So believe it or not, she finally found her phone in her own bag. And when the guy came back, I said, "Listen, dude, I am you, you're me. We're the same person. I would have gotten reamed too, but I loved watching this. It really relaxed me. But you should have comfort knowing that my bag is still in Canada." And they were like, "Oh no." And then I said, oh, Carm was, of course, was chiming in. And then I said, "Hey, I wrote a book about my mom." And so they immediately ordered the book. So I was in sales mode on this trip. I'm no longer in sales mode. I'm beyond exhausted. There'll be funny little things. I did meet Nikki Cuds in New York City. I met so many people that I'm afraid to say names. I'll say a few. Heidi Moraine I met last night, and Tish, and just all along the way, so many people up in Boston. And I had a chance to go to Canton, Massachusetts, where on Monday we're going to have a Karen Reed trial tour. Now, I was going to do it this past week. We were going to podcast a few times, but I had no equipment because I had no luggage. And for some reason, I always carry my computer and everything. From Toronto to Philadelphia, I checked my computer and everything else. Blackwood Door, I've missed Joel so much. I was afraid I'd be over it, but I still love his waffling on. Don't worry, there's a lot more where this came from. But perhaps the most important news to develop over these 2 weeks is this. And just all you have to do is look at this. Phil Waters, the COE, don't take it personally. She cropped you out of this photo. We do see your beautiful feet, Phil. They are pretty feet for a 60-something-year-old male. But tell us about your reuniting with Nugget. Please walk us through this, and then we'll get into some crime.
We pulled into our road. We were in an Uber, and
I'm starting to tear up already. I can feel it.
I looked out the window, sit in the back seat, and I just caught Nugget's head. It was just a quick. There she was, and then I thought she would follow it because I hadn't seen her. I hadn't gotten any Nugget reports for about 2 months, so I was a little concerned. I was asking I sent a text to some of our neighbors. I sent it to I talked to the guy that takes care of our property, who's a friend, and people who take care of our garden and so forth, our plants, and everybody knows Nugget. That's what's great about this community up here. Everybody knows who Nugget is, but nobody had seen him for maybe at least 2 months or so. So I was a little concerned, and we got here and we pulled into the road, and I look over and I see her. She's right there, and I just catch a glimpse of her. And we went on up the road, and I thought she would follow us up. Well, she did not, because she didn't recognize the car. So went on for 2 or 3 days and no Nugget. And I'm thinking, oh, was that just an apparition? Was that just something that I wanted so badly that I imagined it?
Wow.
And because I told my wife, I said, well, that was Nugget. She goes, well, I didn't see her. I said, well, the fact that you didn't see her really doesn't negate the fact that she was there. But
the mind can play tricks. The mind can play tricks. Well,
he started putting doubts in my mind. And so then I was out doing my mowing, and this was last Thursday, I guess, a week ago Thursday. So I was getting the mowing done. I ran out of gas. I had to run up to the corner store to get some gasoline. Jump in the car, heading down the road, pull onto the cul-de-sac, and there Nugget sits inside her gate, and she's probably, I don't know, 25, 30 feet, and she's just sitting there looking.
Mm.
Well, and I just said, real quick, I said, Nugget, and I didn't stop because I was in a hurry, so I just went on. Well, went up there, got the gas. It's about a 10-minute trip. So I went up there, came back, and there she was, waiting for me in the cul-de-sac. And she comes running toward the car because she recognizes the car. I open up the door, and she jumps in, and we were reunited. So brought her to the house, and of course, wanted to let her owners know that we're back. Of course, I'm sure they already knew we were back because I had the Ferrari out once, and so I sent. So we walked Nugget down there to the gate that night, that evening, to put her back inside the gate, and I notified them that we were back as of Monday, and what are the conditions for Nugget this season, and I just put her inside the gate. And so the response was, I didn't get a welcome home. I didn't get anything like that. It was just, we would like Nugget to live at our house. So please don't feed her. And this and that. And I said, will do, no problem. And we will continue to bring her, put her inside the gate when we leave to go on whatever we go on. She said, thank you. And that's kind of where it is. And of course, while I was sending that text, having already put Nugget through the gate, I look up and she has already gone through her little escape hatch and she's standing in front of me outside the gate. So I had to send that message and say, well, she just got out while we're texting and whatever. But put her inside, put her back inside the gate. And so
this shot is in your home, though, correct? This shot.
Oh yeah.
Looks like Nugget's ears grew maybe an inch or two. I don't remember them being obviously.
No. She's just on very happy to be home. She's on high alert when that's her little bat ears go up. The little radar ears go up.
I could just weep looking at her big beautiful eyes. They remind me of my beloved Mabel Rose. Phil, off topic here from Lisa Darwin, and by the way, I'm ecstatic that Nugget is in one piece and healthy. Phil, your favorite restaurant on Big Island, fellow law enforcement family, is headed out there next week for a much needed vacation. What's the one restaurant you would recommend?
Well, it depends on where you are. There's a good Italian restaurant up in Waimea called Don DeLuca's. It's wonderful. We have our birthday parties up there. It's really good food. Down in Kona, there's a place called Huggo's, which we used to go to for my son's birthday every year. I think there's still, hopefully they'll be open now. There is a place in Kona called Sam Choi's. It's very good, but they were closed down for remodeling when we left last year. So I haven't checked to see if they're open yet. Then there's a couple of little neat places up here in where we live, up in Kohala. So in Hawaii, the Kapa'au, right off the Akonepule Highway. One is called Gills. It's really, really good food. There's a L&L barbecue place, which is good. There's the Kingsview Cafe, which we get our pizza from every week.
Yeah. You're getting a whole list.
The Bamboo restaurant down in Hawaii, which is just a 5-minute drive. So yeah, there's a lot of good places. I would just I can't think of really a bad place to eat that we've been to. Yeah. So anyway, there's
There you go. And look at this. This news rivals the free Nugget news. Black Widow, our good friend from the Republic of Ireland. It is her birthday this Sunday. Happy birthday to Black Widow. Brooklyn Rules checked in. I met her in New York City. She's awesome. And she was here. Joel, the live stream at the Jewish Museum was excellent. You and Carm Rock. That was moderated by Jim Axelrod, who used to host some of the CBS 48 Hours. Joel, you are so much taller than I would have thought. I'm not exactly tall, but I'm somewhere between. I like to say 5'10" and a half, maybe 5'11", maybe every once in a while I'll sneak in 6 feet. But yeah, KC, great to meet KC. Just met so many amazing people. People were so nice to Carm. Oh, this is a funny story. So Carm, and then I promise we'll get into some truth. We want to talk about true crime on a Friday, but we will. Analytical Blarney, friend of the show. So Carm, lo and behold, the narcissism does not fall far from the tree. We land in Philly. She could care less that my baggage is lost. And she says to me, I want to get my hair blow dried for this beautiful event tonight. First, I said, are you going to the Phillies game? And she said, and I quote, I'd rather die. Luckily, that didn't happen. So she made an appointment at a place called the Blow Dry Bar, Blow Dry, BLO Dry. And she says, she calls me immediately. The minute she gets up on the second floor there, I was worried about her, but I was off to the Phillies game and I told her to fend for herself. And she did. And she's a survivor, so I knew she'd make it. And she calls me shortly thereafter to say, the minute she gets in there, she hears Carm. And lo and behold, Carm is recognized in Philadelphia, and it was none other than Philadelphia shoulder surgeon, this person in the red Phillies and FBI hat, and she was going there herself. So they bumped into each other, and then a little while later, I met PSS. She actually took me to the game. It was amazing. The Phillies are a great team. Good game. They won. And then Patricia has a question here. Hello from the UK. Enjoying the live, even though we haven't talked a lick of crime yet, true crime. Enjoying the live. Spoke to Joel. Joel spoke about a protest. So we were going to do something about Ellen Greenberg on this today. However, it's Memorial Day weekend in the States, and I spoke to a bunch of people. We are going to wait till the fall and organize something properly. However, Carm and I were on Good Day Philadelphia yesterday, which is the Fox morning show, very, very popular show. And I brought up Ellen Greenberg, and sure enough, they didn't really know anything about it. So after the show, the producer was asking me a million questions, and now they're going. Sometimes the media is just clueless. So the main anchor, who I know, Mike Jarek, and it's weird, I forgot, when I was at Fox News Channel, I would do a lot of reporting for the affiliate. So when he saw me, he was very happy to see me, and I didn't even understand why. But then I realized he had seen me all the time when I was doing stuff for Fox. And then he had known about Ellen Greenberg, but other people did not. I'm in a lot of trouble because Scott Duffy has not said anything in a while. Lucca, the Irish, gifted 1 membership. So let's get on to true crime here. So Scott Duffy, there were court documents released in the case of Veronica Butler and Jillian Kelly, the Yucatan, Kansas mothers who met a very untimely demise in a horrific way. Look at this. We're here for you, Scott. Your turn will hopefully come soon, and it's coming right now. Scott Duffy, affidavits and court documents were released. One question that no one asks is, what is the impetus? What causes an affidavit or a court document to be released on a particular date? Like, why did they wait till 2 days ago to tell us a whole bunch of stuff, as opposed to not telling us this 3 weeks ago? The question is, why are affidavits sometimes released much later, seemingly on random dates?
So when an affidavit gets filed with the clerk of the courts, and then there's an action, for example, let's say the search warrant is executed, an arrest warrant's executed, an affidavit's attached to that. it becomes public knowledge unless, at least in the Fed system, that the prosecutor will want to keep it under the wraps. So with usually the law enforcement team, the prosecutor, the investigators would discuss keeping it sealed. And so that's an extra petition to tell the judge, hey, we're going to do this, but we're not ready for it to be released by the court yet. And so ultimately, the judge has the final say. But if, for law enforcement protection, continuing investigation that could be hampered, inhibited, and whatnot, those documents would remain sealed. So thereby, they are not for public consumption. So it's probably in that realm that it was ongoing, and document affidavits were being filed, but they did not want media, press, or anybody that they were looking at to potentially have the upper hand. That's why it may take days, weeks, even months for certain things to be released.
KC, Phil Waters, you care to answer? We will be weaving in and out of true crime. Why does the dog, meaning Nugget, have a dog door that allows her to get onto the road with 100 question marks? Phil Waters.
She does not have a dog door.
Oh, there you go.
Nugget has found a way to defeat every attempt to restrain her movement within the property of the owners.
There's a lot of questions here. By the way, Nikki Cudd says, come and meet me at the Garden State Mall. What's sad, in my view, is the Jewish cemetery. This Sunday, by the way, is what they call the unveiling. It's actually the title of Ruth Markel's book. And I had dinner with Ruth and Phil Markel. And that was really amazing. And I shared some of that on Court TV. We were on Court TV this morning. And they are in good spirits and waiting this trial. And once I officially get back next week, we're going to be doing a lot of Karen Reed, but we're going to be heavily focused moving forward on Dan Markel and the Adelsons. But Nikki Cudd says, come and meet me at the Garden State Mall. My dad, sadly, is buried just a stone's throw from the Garden State Mall. And I said to my mom, why in the world would you ever bury him there? And she said, because that's where we have our plots, not to be depressing. So that's that. And I also told my mom I'm leaving. A Jewish tradition is you put a stone on the tombstone. I'm not even exactly sure why. It's just tradition. And I told Carm I'm putting my book into a Ziploc bag. I'm going to sign it first to my dad, and I'm putting it atop his headstone. And she said to me, and I quote, that has got to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard. To which I said, it might be dumb, but I'm doing it. And that was that. So, by the way, when I put up Phil's feet, someone commented that this photo will be on Wiki Feet. Scott Duffy, I got to ask you, have you ever heard of Wiki Feet? Does that exist? Is that a joke? I have no idea. But there are people with foot fetishes, and Phil's got beautiful feet. Do you think that photo will somehow make the interwebs?
It will make some site. But no, I haven't heard of what is it? Wiki Feet?
Wiki Feet, apparently.
Wow, Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Oh, Wikipedia. Yeah. Is it? Yeah.
Lindsay Shea, we did stream the New York portion with Jim Axelrod, and that is available on our site if you want to. Well, that's like the actual book tour. Look at Bonnie Lee Lopez with a compliment and or an insult, depending on the way you look at it. Joel, you cleaned up well. Looked very handsome on the tour. One day I came out of the hotel room and Carm goes, oh my God. And I go, what? You scared me. And she goes, that white beard, are you going to trim it? And I did, because I listened to my mom. And look at Nikki Cuds. Joel, you're much nicer than I thought. Thank you, Nikki. I was raised by a mother that demanded I be nice. So I listened to my mom. Okay, so back to true crime here. So Scott Duffy, a lot of this stuff we know, but it was reinforced in this in these new affidavits and court documents that these two women, Veronica Butler, may they rest in peace, she rest in peace, 27 years old, and Jillian Kelly, 39, who was just there accompanying her. They went missing March 30th in Texas County. Veronica Butler intended to pick up her daughter for her birthday, and that's why they were going there. And Jillian Kelly was a court-appointed supervisor. And now they gave you details, Scott, but they didn't give you a ton of details. And one of them was that they were lured from rural Highway 95 in Kansas now. Because I think originally they said it was in Oklahoma. They lured them right near the Oklahoma border, but they were actually still in Kansas. And they had a plot to murder, but the cause of death still unknown. What do you make of these details? I mean, what does that mean? They lured people to murder them. How do you read that?
I mean, I read it that they had a plan, that was in place, either through communicating to them. Perhaps so now that we know that the grandma might have been texting or doing something or sending information, somehow getting information to lead them one way versus another. So, or there was, depending on the location and so forth, perhaps they set up some sort of roadblock or something to get them off their regular route to a location that they wanted planned. Obviously, they were looking to have a place they wanted of their choosing to commit this kidnapping murder and take it from there. So it goes to show the plan, and I imagine through some sort of communication that has been seized or somebody talking, that they were probably able to come up with this information, which is if they could back it up with the evidence, fantastic.
By the way, Black Widow, PSS is a catch, STS singles. It's funny you mentioned that, Widow, and happy birthday again, pre-birthday. But Carm and Scott, and now I'm going to get hate mail because I just said Phil instead of Scott. Wow. Carm, Scott, and the PSS, we were all hanging out.
I can go ahead and depart this discussion without any problem. So
you're included.
I got plenty I can do. So,
by the way, Phil, are those horses still in the pasture?
Yes.
Oh, I love it. Phil, we would not ever do this show without you, or you don't be silly. I'm
just saying that, I'm okay. Whichever direction you want to go, I'm okay.
So we were discussing this. Carm and Scott Duffy both are on the lookout for a man for PSS. Don't want to, embarrass her, but going to make it happen. She's a surgeon after all. Look at this. Got Donuts here. Met her in Toronto. Got Donuts is a true character. She zipped in, zipped out. She sends me really funny emails sometimes, and her personality in real life matched her online personality, I guess. I read the book. It's great. Stop stressing. She was in and out. And by the way, she just got engaged. And guess what? I'm allowed to say this, Got Donuts. She popped the question at the Eiffel Tower. They were just in Paris, and she asked her boyfriend of many, many years, and he wept with joy. So there you go, women out there. You can pop the question to the man. We're living in different times. You don't have to just wait for the question. She popped it, and he said yes, and the rest, as they say, is history. So, and by the way, Got Donuts happens. It's a very small world. She plays golf with Phil Markel. How about that? Look at this from Best Ida Shaw JD. This donation is made on behalf of and in honor of Black Widow's birthday. Very sweet. This is why I always say best guest, better community. So, Phil Waters, back to crime, which is your expertise here. Again, the court docs, the new court documents support what we heard before. Evidence of severe injury with blood, that Veronica Butler's glasses were found kind of crumpled, a broken hammer. They say a pistol this time, not just the magazine. The remains were discovered on April 13th. And this is where the new stuff kind of comes in and it gets interesting, Phil Waters. These two women, and again, it doesn't say the cause of death, but it does tell us that they were found inside a chest freezer that had been buried in a pasture. Veteran homicide detective Phil Waters, what does this tell you? Assuming you're the lead investigator and you come upon a chest freezer buried in a pasture, what is your first thought? What is your reaction?
It was all premeditated. It was all planned. I would imagine that the hole was dug and the freezer was in place before they even made contact with Jillian and Veronica. Oh boy, there you go. There's the cast of Deliverance right there, isn't it? So the only thing we don't have is the banjo. Yeah, I mean, it's you're talking about where it looks like they were drawn to a certain location. I think we said early on that it appeared that there may have been a spot that they were going to meet, but yet they were contacted and said, look, we need y'all to meet us here. And that's what brought them further south into Oklahoma, and where they ultimately ended up being murdered, that location. So I think all the evidence that they've got, that the again, OSBI guys, what a great job they did, keeping things close to the vest, just pursuing the investigation with a sense of urgency, and all these things that have now developed since then that we know about, i.e. this chest. I think it just goes to further show the premeditation involved, that this was a planned event. And to get all these people, I guess Ma Barker here in the middle is the one that coordinated all of this. And then we've got all these other knuckleheads around her that she coordinated it with. And they all participated to some degree. They all had a different role in what ultimately occurred. So they still have the death penalty in Oklahoma. These 5 knuckleheads are candidates. They're poster children for the death penalty.
So Phil, I was saving that question. I was saving that one for the end, that question. But now that you brought it up, will they be tried as death penalty? Will all 5, do you think, be tried as death penalty cases?
I don't know that. I mean, that'll be something decided by the prosecutors in Oklahoma. I would, and it's going to depend on their level of participation, what they did. I would think if there were a couple of individuals that were directly involved in the murders themselves, in the sense that they were there present and took part in the actual murders, they would be candidates for the death penalty without any hesitation. And those that may have been peripheral participants, parties to the offense is what we call it in Texas, they might not be tried as death penalty. They may be tried as non-death capitals, but that just remains to be seen at this point. I have seen cases in Texas that I've had where shooters in the event, or the actual murderers that committed the act, were death penalty cases, and then people that were parties to the offense but didn't take an active role were adjudged the death penalty. And I've seen those that were tried as non-death capital. So it's just going to depend on what the prosecutors determine is the most just way of prosecuting these 5 murderers.
And then it said today is someone's birthday. Real happy 33. I want to say, real happy 33. Happy birthday to Real Happy 33 from one birthday girl to another. Bonnie Lee Lopez once again weighing in with her beautiful dog on her lap. Joel, I liked in the clip when you and Carm are in the car, because I was posting on Instagram at Surviving the Survivor, en route to the airport, and she tells you to stop talking to her. At one point in Toronto, it was actually Miami weather. It was just Miami weather. It was very hot, and Carm loves the heat. And I asked the man to turn on the air conditioning. And Carm started screaming at me, "Don't turn on the air." And I said, "What do you want me to breathe?" And she said, "Breathe the air that is left in the car. And if it runs out, that's your problem." But I was sweating. We got into it a few times. I'd say more than a few times. But it was really, I got to say, on a serious note, I never thought I'd have this opportunity to be with my almost 85-year-old mother and travel through some of the greatest cities in America and Canada and share her in a gift. I refer to her as in the book, I refer to her as a gift. And I do believe that. And a lot of people had really interesting questions for her, really interesting questions. And to hear her take was fascinating. This is definitely the Deliverance crew here. And again, I harp on this every time, but upper right is 43 years old. He is aging in dog years. Nugget looks much, much better can't even compare the two, in my opinion. But Scott Duffy, a question that popped in my mind when Phil was just talking. They've got this kind of star witness, the state does already, because they talk about in the affidavit, and that is, we believe, she never mentioned by name, but everyone knows her to be Cole and Cora Twombly, the two Deliverance cast members on the bottom. They believe it to be her daughter. She had a lot of information for them. But because this could be a death penalty case, will the state pressure some of these people on the screen, not Granny Adams or the 43-year-old, but some of the others to maybe flip or become state's witness? Is there any chance of that they're pressuring them behind the scenes to just create an open and shut case?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it pressure. It's a good tactic, and especially when you have more than one person involved in a crime. Here, 5. Law enforcement can take a look at this and be able to judge by the evidence and everything they have to get to this point of putting 5 people in jail, to see who are the weaker links in this, and then to use them to bolster the core of the case. That is, who's the ringleader? Is there a ringleader? Identify who they are, if not just one, grandma in the middle, and then to, behind the scenes with their attorney, figure out what kind of deal, if anything, could be offered. Or, it may be, if this is going to be a death penalty case, no promises are made, but it could be that the prosecutors say, we just won't stand in the way of the jury voting one way or the other. So, for example, and I don't know how it works in that particular state, but yes, it's a good tactic, and I would think any prosecutor and investigating agency would not be doing justice if they weren't talking to the weaker links, and they know who they are in order to work their way up. So it's good practice.
Phil Waters, look at this, from Riding Shotgun. Oklahoma has the highest deaths per capital punishment in the nation. I would have, of course, thought it was Texas. Did you know that this is, in fact, the answer, if it is?
No, I was not aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So Phil Waters, there's more. The old commercials on TV when they're selling you the perfect can opener. They say, but wait, there's more. So there is more to this. Turns out that Granny Adams, as I call her in the middle, she had rented this freezer for cattle grazing. Anything related to farming is beyond my scope of understanding, but apparently I guess you can rent a freezer to put cattle food or whatever you do in there to keep it cool. And now this freezer was found inside a hole that was filled with dirt and concrete. And in that hole, Phil Waters, is a long list of other items. And those items, Phil Waters, have, quote unquote, according to the affidavit, possible blood on them, including jeans, sweatshirts, T-shirts, a black jacket, cloth gloves, ball caps, duct tape, a sheath black knife, and a black taser flashlight. I'm assuming, Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, that this is what the killers were likely wearing and wanted to discard the evidence. How easy or difficult will it be to, now that they've extracted those items, to now, number one, match them to clothing that they had, the class to Deliverance here, and or, get DNA off of these items to really pin them down to these people?
Well, it won't be that difficult. It'll just be part of the investigative process. And if they have DNA that's going to be present, that's going to link these people to those articles of clothing, then it's just a step in the process to building a better case. And this is what happens when you have a homicide investigation where you have the point where you've developed enough probable cause to make an arrest, and then the case will over time just get better, because that's where the focal part of the investigation begins, is after these arrests are made, and now we start gathering all the evidence that we can to have the most powerful presentation at the time of the trial.
From Luck of the Irish, Phil Waters, back to you, even though Duffy's Irish. I'm hoping to adopt a little dog, Joel, Phil, and Scott. Any advice on the breed I should adopt? I had a Shih Tzu for 14 years, a wonderful little dog, thank you. My vote is for a Great Dane. I think you should go to the opposite extreme, or a Chinese Mastiff. Google it if you've never seen it. Phil Waters, what's your vote for Luck of the Irish?
In terms of the type of the breed?
Correct.
Well, my preference is bull terriers, but you better do some research on those dogs before you engage in an adoption.
Tell me why. What do you have to know about bull terriers, Phil?
Well, bull terriers are perpetual 2-year-olds in a dog suit. So, for any of you that have had 2-year-olds, there's the old funny saying that a tired bull terrier is a good bull terrier. They're very energetic. They call them the clowns of the dog world. They do what we call hucklebuts or whoop whoops, where they will, at top speed, will spin around your house in the interior as fast as they can possibly go. And of course, sometimes that results in them slamming into walls. Lily, our first bull terrier, she had a habit of running from the master bedroom into the master bathroom and sliding sideways into the bathtub as hard as she possibly could and bouncing off of it. Poppy, the one we have now, she likes to do that against the log wall, which serves to less damage. But so they're just very active dogs, and you need to read up on them and be ready to be. But they're very loving. I mean, they're as sweet as they can be, and they're really good dogs. So, but then of course, I got my little Chihuahua dog here, and of course, Nugget may be an anomaly, but I never thought I'd be in love with a Chihuahua. But
by the way, is she asleep on the sofa behind you as per usual?
Well, she was, but she just, hello, Nuggie. Come here. She just went out. Come here, Nuggie. Come here, sweet gold.
And Phil, how often, I don't want to make you feel guilty, Phil, but how often do you check on Poppy when you're in Hawaii? Look at Nugget. Look at little
Here's Nugget.
Nugget. Hi, Nugget.
Okay.
How often do you check on Poppy, Phil? How often do you check on Poppy?
We get almost daily, every couple of days, Poppy reports, pictures, videos, and so she's doing well. Although there were some big storms that hit the Houston area a week or so ago. And where Poppy is at Camp Arter with our friends there, she's there with her buddies, Daisy and Dodger, and a tornado set down right there, very near. They've got an acreage out there, several acres, and their neighbor's truck landed in their pasture.
Wow.
Their neighbor's roof landed in their front yard. There were a couple of big trees that were split like in half. The weirdest looking. They sent us pictures. Weird. And she, at the time, this was all going on, and their roof had a little bit of damage. But at the time, they were hunkered down in the bathroom with the dogs and all that stuff. So, but yeah, she's Poppy's. I miss my Poppy dog.
Yeah. Scott Duffy, I heard it. McSpunky calling him out. Phil Waters, the bozo horn went off very subtly. Did you hear it, Scott? Though you did.
I did hear it. Yep, I did.
An FBI
I
agent.
thought I had this turned off.
Yeah, we all heard it, Bill. You can't hide from it.
Yeah, I guess I got busted. Huh?
Look at this. Carrie Lasser, Great Danes are the sweetest dogs. My beloved Mabel Rose, everyone knows. I don't have to go into it. I miss her desperately. When we were in Tucson, Arizona, Scott Duffy, Mabel was dog park friends, and this is a true story. She was dog park friends with George. George is the greatest Great Dane on record, and he was on the Oprah Winfrey show back in the day. And if you Google George the Great Dane, you will see Mabel used to go into the park and stand underneath George, right underneath, and there was plenty of room above her. And Mabel was a little pudgy, beautiful. I mean, loved every role, but she had some size to her, and she would just sit or stand right below George. I don't know if the COE ever met George, but the COE is sweet too. But George the Great Dane, who was on Oprah, he wrote a book, believe it or not. But yeah, here we go. Great Danes are wonderful companions. Google George, the biggest Great Dane, Oprah, and you will see what I'm talking about. Scott Duffy. So here's another interesting twist in this case, per the documents. Weird vibe in the air tonight, and it's probably me because I'm just back to getting in the swing of things here. But the documents that were just released also allege that Paul Grice, now he was the guy top left. He was the last one to be arrested. He was not arrested with the other cast of Deliverance. He was a few weeks after the fact. He had, according to the affidavit, Scott Duffy, asked a witness back on April 18th some suspicious questions after the other four were arrested. And he asked how long DNA would last in dirt if it was churned, and also questioned if the witness knew how to get a guy and his family to Mexico. What kind of gold is that for investigators? You're doing this investigation and you get these witness statements that this is what he was asking. Is that gold or is that just hearsay?
It's a good witness account, and this is why when law enforcement makes arrests, they put out information. Hey, if anybody has heard something, seen something strange, give us a call. So these are, as Phil likes to say, a great clue, and it allows law enforcement to reach further, right? Because you don't want anybody that's not part of that out and about. And my guess is who's ever cooperating of these five, there may be additional, maybe outliers of sorts, but it's nice when the community calls and says, hey, this is something I've heard and it caught me off guard, so have at it. And then law enforcement can do their thing. So it's it's good stuff. And I imagine they have more than just those words to put them behind bars.
By the way, along the trip, I met so many people and they shared photos of their pets. And one of the most unique was, you'll see her in chat every once in a while, Carmela Corleone. And she is named partly after Carm, I think. But Carmela is actually a cat, a hairless cat, is it a Sphinx cat? It's a big cat. And she showed me a photo, and it's super cool, a little creepy, but it's hairless because they've got cat allergies. But without hair, there's nothing to be allergic to. But seeing that cat was kind of wild, at least in the photo. And would you ever have a cat? Phil, do you have a cat? Scott has a cat, but Phil, you don't have a cat, right?
I used to have a cat, and he was murdered, and by
Murdered?
he was murdered by a couple of Rottweilers. Yeah, that's a very, and I found it, so it was a very traumatic thing for me. But yeah, I've had cats. I've had cats all my life. I love cats. I love dogs. There's not many animals I don't love. There's a couple, probably not, but yeah, I'm an animal guy.
Phil, I don't want to bring you back to a traumatic event, but I just have to wonder if you were there at that moment where you saw these Rottweilers attacking your beloved cat, what would you have done in that moment? I heard something interesting, but how would you have handled that? Because they don't know you're America's most respected detective. They're animals. They would have kept going crazy. How would you have stopped that?
Well, it was if I had been there at the time,
correct.
I would have dispatched them with a large caliber handgun. But after it happened, after I found him, his name is Satch, by the way. He was named after Joe Satriani because my son was a virtuoso guitar player himself. So I called animal control. We had seen the dogs that night on our property at our garage, and they left. It was just the dogs. I've been around animals all my life, and I could tell that something was wrong with these dogs. I'm not a big fan of Rottweilers anyway, but I went out the next morning. Satch didn't come in that night. Went out the next morning. I thought he had found himself a place to hide, and that's not what occurred. So I found him and called animal control and told them that they needed to get out here and find these dogs, because if they don't and I find them, and I went looking for them, that I was going to kill them. And so they did get out there. They responded. They found the dogs. I told them what I felt was who was kind of running the deal between the two dogs, male and female. And
I have to interrupt. Did they know? At this point, did they know you're a homicide detective because you're now investigating this murder?
I don't know that. I don't think so. I think they happened upon our property, and this is the third time they've been loose. So the people that owned them, the comment that I heard was, if they get out again, don't bring them back. Well, that really wasn't much comfort, but long and short of it was, the animal control people did the right thing. They put down the female, and they took the male and sent him to some freaking farm or ranch 100 miles away. So there was some justice.
If that was me, I would have wanted to eliminate the owners, not the dogs, but that's just me, and I'm not normal.
Well, that would have been part of the consideration, but you can't half-step something like this, and we did what we could do under the circumstances. Oh, yeah, I've never met the owners, don't know them, but my initial response was to go over and have a chat with them, but that would have led to something,
Yeah. Phil always says any rational person, given the right circumstances, or better yet, the wrong circumstances. I'm glad Phil did not react that way. It could have turned very bad for this homicide detective. One of America's most respected detectives could have just snapped, and that would have been ugly. Deborah Guzman says the allergy is not actually the fur. It's from their saliva. So her allergist doctor says. I never knew that. No. Look at this, though. Carmela Corleone in the chat. It was amazing to meet her. She was there with her sweet little boy, who's not so little, by the way. Love meeting you guys. I adore the book. Beautifully done, Joel. Carmela is amazing. Yes, she is. And Carmela, Surviving the Survivor at Gmail. Send me a picture of Carmela Corleone. And like I did with Nugget just now, I'll put it up on Instagram, Surviving the Survivor at Gmail, or you can just tag me on Instagram. Nikki Cuds chiming in. Love Joe Satriani. There you go. So, Scott Duffy, back to this guy, Paul Grice. What a weird show it is today. First day back, as they say, after a hiatus here. So he was worried about his DNA being found, Scott Duffy. When they went to arrest him, so the guy in the top left was at the 43-year-old on the top right's home. And when the 43-year-old on the top right was arrested, again, Paul on the top left was at the house. And as they're putting handcuffs on Tad Cullum here, they noticed that the guy in the top left has his pinky bandaged, Scott Duffy. He said he cut it working on his pickup. But they have now multiple, they're saying, forensic links, including cell phones and all that. But again, Scott Duffy, you're investigating this case. You go to make the arrest, and you notice a guy that you think could be involved has a giant bandage on a pinky finger. How excited or not do you get over a development like that?
Oh yeah, I mean, especially when you realize this is a conspiracy and you have multiple parties involved in this. So if you're going to go to the guy on the right house and you're there for executing a warrant, I would say anybody in that house is going to get a look over, at least an interview, right? And then they leave and continue with their forensics and their digital analysis, and then say, okay. So it's important not to leave any question on the table, right? You go ahead and ask the questions. Maybe you'll get a spontaneous answer, a lie, or whatever it is. If there's not enough to move, then you go about. But now you have law enforcement loves that and is able to say, hey, let's take a harder look. And then, of course, combined with witness statements from somebody else saying, hey, this was said to me. They're all great pieces. And you just don't want that one piece. You want multiple pieces of evidence, physical, and all the other evidence of witness testimony to put this narrative together and really seal this case as they move forward, because it is a big case to put together, and especially with this many people, if not more.
Scott Duffy, I know you're married, but I found the perfect woman, Deborah Guzman. We have 2 ducks, 8 chickens, 2 indoor cats, Romeo and Danny Boy, 1 pit box mix named Sheba, and 18 feral cats that we need and care for. So there you go. That is Deborah Guzman. Courtney H here says, this is a great question. Phil, could you help us understand why this woman, Granny Adams in the middle, would get 4 other people involved in these murders and create more of a risk for getting caught, which is a great point. The more people, the better chance. And lo and behold, they get caught. Your response to her question, Phil?
Well, that's a great question. And that's Courtney asking that question. So that's a great question.
Yeah.
Because there are people out there that are so driven to commit an act of evil, they're going to recruit people in that they are close to further the act. And all these people, as I understand it, are all related to her in some way. And she feels confident that given the people that she's asking to help her, assist her in these capital murders, are going to help her without question, and they're going to keep their mouths shut. Now, the other side of that coin is, we've said it on here before, that according to the Hells Angels, the best kept secrets among 3 people are when 2 of them are dead. So, but apparently there is a relationship here, a loyalty to this woman. Just looking at the pictures of these people, I am sure that the the family tree probably has one branch, and therefore they're all connected in that way, in a bond of unity.
That's kind of funny. Felicia, Scott Duffy, I'd like you to react to this, please. This channel is always talking about a bunch of extra stuff. I came here to hear about the Misfits. Scott, I'm too tired to get agitated today. I really am. I told Carm, by the way, that I actually annoy myself because I've got some OCD tendencies. I like to repeat things, and I can annoy myself, and I don't want to. I don't know Felicia. I'm sure she's nice, but any response from you to this comment?
Are we the Misfits, or
Yeah.
who on the screen is the Misfits? Then
Yeah.
she's getting her full of Misfit talk. So
You know
well,
what, Scott?
welcome,
That was a brilliant answer. A brilliant answer. Annie K here. If investigating this case, this is a great question. What might you do about this gang's other friends, and how would the main witness? What do you do here? This young girl, they're saying, teenager, could be in harm's way. She's one of the witnesses, but let's say 43-year-old looks 93. Let's say just hypothetically he flips on Granny Adams. How do you protect this guy?
Who's that to?
That's to
I'll
you,
chime in.
Scott.
Yeah.
That's to you.
So like anything else in a conspiracy, and I worked quite a few conspiracy cases. Most of my cases that I worked were conspiracy in some sort, as any gang investigations. So you protect them by putting them in jail. That's the best place, and then let the prison system and do what they need to do. So you're protecting them from people on the outside, obviously, and the prison knows how to move people around. The witnesses on the outside, I mean, that's all what it comes down to. That's where investigators are constantly talking to them and evaluating their situational awareness. Hey, you're providing us information as it gets closer and closer to trial, that may go to a trial. It becomes a little more public, information comes out, witness lists and so forth. What would you like us to do? So I've had people that be like, I'm good, I know how to take care of myself and so forth. And then other people be like, you know what, I feel better if you relocate me. Not so much like relocating like the Marshal Service, WITSEC, the witness protection, which is a very, a lot that goes into changing names and so forth. But it could be, moving them in the next town, and maybe, hey, do you have relatives you can go stay with? I'll get some funding. If not, somewhere you can stay, and we'll foot the bill. All those things that go in place. It's really just an open discussion. Many of the people that I've dealt with who are providing information, they were not afraid. They felt very comfortable in staying local, and they said they pretty much knew how. And then, of course, a phone call away. So.
By the way, we had dinner last night. The shoulder surgeon Scott and myself and Carm, and I said to Scott, "I know you like to have situational awareness. You choose your seat." To which he said, "Don't worry, I've got you guys. I've got eyes." And I have to say, walking around with a retired FBI agent, I feel like I can talk to anybody because Scott Duffy knows how to throw them to the ground, pin them down, bend their wrist in an by the way, Scott, when we're in CrimeCon, you're teaching me some of those moves. But Carm felt safe, I felt safe, and we all felt safe, and nothing happened. Look at that. Nothing happened.
We were in a beautiful, well, both. We were together in the Citizens Bank Park, the Phillies stadium.
Yeah. Well, there is where I'm going to get beat up for sure.
There you have to be careful. But then you have a beautiful Chestnut Hill. It's a beautiful section of Philadelphia. It's very.
The only good part about the Phillies are, that I took solace in is you can't bring weapons in. So that was just going to, if I was going to get beat up there, it was just going to be by 30 Philadelphia Phillies fans. You and I saw someone wearing an opposing team's jersey and they got a little heckling, to which I said to Scott, I know much better. I wore a black t-shirt, shockingly, I know, but I didn't in the heat. That was dumb. Deborah Guzman, I'm just curious how much food you buy in a month to feed the 57 animals you have. We're going to wrap this up in just a moment. Phil Waters, to you. So this son, his name is Wrangler Rickman. That's Granny's son in the middle. He happened to be in a court-appointed drug rehab when all this went down. But he said, according to documents, that his grandmother told him that they didn't have to, quote unquote, worry about the custody battle much longer because Granny Adams had it under control and would take out Veronica Butler. How damning is that? Again, this is coming from the son of the main perpetrator, but in a court of law, is that a very damning statement, or is it not? Because who we're dealing with, this is Deliverance's child.
Well, in his effort to, oh, sure. I mean, yeah. Anytime you've got people within the circle that are providing an insight into that circle, it will be damaging. And so this is a puzzle with many pieces to it and many characters involved, and each bit of information, especially along those realms, along that realm, is going to be very crucial and critical to the successful prosecution of these people.
One of the interesting things, and we'll put a bow on this story and move on to some others, but one of the interesting things in all these documents that's kind of buried, I didn't see this, albeit I've been traveling for 2 straight weeks, but it turns out that Granny, Tiffany Adams in the middle, she's the grandmother to 3 of Veronica Butler's children. We'd only ever heard of 2, but now there's a 3rd child involved. So that makes it a little bit more tragic because obviously mom is no longer there, and dad, who is Wrangler Rickman, openly said that he has a drug problem and openly said he has 0 interest in caring for his own children. So yeah, it gets sadder knowing there's 1 additional child. Interesting question out of left field from Feld, but met Alice Ryder Feld as well. I met her in Miami. That seems like 800 years ago. What do you think about Charlie's move? She's talking about Charlie Adelson. Scott Duffy, the defense in the Charlie Adelson trial was basically to say that the Latin King gangs extorted him, and lo and behold, he gets convicted and he's in state prison. And sources told STS he was green lighted for a hit, that the Latin King gangs in the prison said, we are going to now kill this guy for this. So they quickly moved him to South Dakota. I've had former inmates on to discuss this, and it's scary as hell. They say this guy is living the worst nightmare he can possibly live. By the way, Phil Markel did tell me he hopes they don't get to him because he'd rather him be in prison and, dealing with prison life for the rest of his time on this earth. But Scott Duffy, does it surprise you that your defense is to point the finger at a gang, you get convicted, and now the gang is trying to kill you behind bars?
No, I mean, no surprise there, and kudos to the state for being able to find about it. There's some great intelligence I've seen throughout my career with the Bureau of Prisons, and then of course every prison, like SIU, they call them these special investigators, and they're great at gathering intel from wherever they need to within their prison systems, and for them to be able to act quickly. And I know states have these systems where they're not constantly, but they have these agreements in order for the sake of the safety of a prisoner, to be able to move them out of. It doesn't mean they're out of reach from the Latin Kings, but at least to get them to a place of safety, because they are required to do everything in their utmost ability to keep their residents, their inmates, safe, and then moving them about different states if that's what's needed. I've seen that between Delaware and Maryland, Delaware and other Department of Corrections in different states where they'll swap prisoners for that very sake.
Look at this from Brooklyn Rules, who I met in New York City. Jim Axelrod was so cool. He's one of the more senior, if not the most senior, CBS correspondents. He went to Iraq and Afghanistan back in the day. He was host of 48 Hours for a while. Very seasoned, polished, awesome interviewer. Carmen and I were talking so much, she didn't really have a chance to be interviewed, but he's from my hometown, and we're a tight-knit community. Shout out to Mitchell Ornstein. He showed up at my book signing last night. Scott met him. I was talking about what a weird town I come from. I'm like a stone's throw from Rutgers University. Very, very, look at this. Gina Tracy, thank you so much for this. Really appreciate it. But so Jim Axelrod is one. Another person from my hometown was Stanford from Sex and the City. He sadly passed away. His real name was Willie Pasmont, but he went by Willie Garson as his stage name. He was also in the show White Collar. He very sadly passed away from pancreatic cancer a couple years. I found out from an alert on TMZ. He was my sister's good friend. So it's a weird town. And then out of nowhere walks in Mitchell Ornstein last night, and I immediately recognized him. Even Scott was a little taken aback. I haven't seen him since high school, but I never forget a face. I never remember a name, but I never forget a face. And right away knew that it was him. And I was talking about what a weird town it is and how smart so many people are. And then I turned to Mitchell and said, "Where'd you go to college?" And he goes, "Oh, I went to Harvard." He's another one whose IQ is through the roof, and he's now a professor of Russian history at the University of Pennsylvania. Phil, how much do you know about Russian history? I bet he knows something.
Not a lot. I know a little. Not a lot.
Yeah. Well, if anyone would know a little, it would be Phil Waters. Moving on. So keep these two in our thoughts. Just think about this for 1 minute. This woman on the left, Jillian Kelly, goes court-appointed supervisor, completely minding her business. She's with this woman on the right, a mom of 3 now, we know. And this Deliverance crew ends their lives. I can never get over just the callousness of these crimes and the way they all go down. I have a feeling the COE is long gone. She usually flips the screen. So instead of that, we'll put up, I don't know how to flip the screen. We'll just look at Phil's feet for a while. Beautiful feet again, Phil. I can't get over how pretty those feet are. How is Carm holding up? She immediately, she took a nap. I'm going to do my best not to, when I get nervous and anxious, now that this is over, the adrenaline's coming down, I'll probably irritate the crap out of her. And she will, she said she's resorting to sign language with me. And one of the 3 signs she's giving me is the finger. So I'm trying not to have her flip me the bird, but that's Carm. Anyway, just touching on this, we're going to try to do a show on this coming week, a full show. But Scott Duffy, this woman, Corey Richins, she's the mother of 3 who is accused of murdering her husband, a very wealthy Salt Lake City, Utah person, by poisoning him with 5 times the lethal amount of fentanyl. Well, suddenly her attorneys all quit on her, citing and I quote here, irreconcilable and non-waivable situation. What does that mean, Scott Duffy? What's really going on here? And by the way, we had Sky Lazaro on. That is her criminal defense attorney. She came on to comment about Lori Vallow, and Steve Cohen is reaching out to Sky, and hopefully we're going to get her on and get the inside scoop of what's happening with Corey Richins. But Scott, you hear an entire defense team. Oh, by the way, this is true. Carm did. She kind of gave Roy an ultimatum. My dad, may he rest in peace. She told him, either you marry me or I'm out. And he said, okay, I'll marry you. So sort of she asked him, but not exactly. My dad caved. Scott Duffy, what does it mean that an entire team of attorneys defending you quits as you're sitting in jail?
Well, what does it mean? You said a particular term, which I haven't heard of. I know it's
irreconcilable and non-waivable situation.
Yeah, it just sounds like the defense team realizes we need to bail. It's not good.
Is it a money thing?
I don't. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it would necessarily come down to money. I think the attorneys are smart. For the attorneys that I've dealt with, they require quite a considerable amount of money up front. So they usually know your financial situation before they're going to get involved. I would venture to say there are other things, personality, um, and lack of cooperation to the point that they feel like they're in a totally unwinnable situation in the sense of trying to get the best whatever they could do. So you know something took a turn and they realized that they need to bail. Not good for the defendant. The defendant will have to figure out
Yeah.
another
Shivani says, "I'll be surprised if Sky Lazaro speaks about Corey Richards." I would be. I'm with you on that, but I'm still going to ask. And by the way, Aria Dakota Grimaldi Lane, I love that name. Did anyone hear that lawyer Lee? Yes, she lost her husband. Very tragic. So sad for her. Please send her love, guys. Maybe we'll see her at CrimeCon. I'm sure she's having a very difficult time. I think I don't know the whole story, but I know her husband was wheelchair bound and he had some recent, a lot of medical issues. And feel terribly for her. So I think she's taken a much needed hiatus from the YouTube world. But Phil Waters, just to put a bow on Corey Richards, she decided it'd be a good idea from jail to speak to a Dateline NBC podcast. And she says, and I quote here, that I'm ready for a fight. I'm anxious. I'm anxious to prove my innocence. I'm anxious to get to trial, and I'm ready to give this one hell of a fight. I've been silent for a year, locked away from my kids, my family, my life, living with the media telling the world who they think I am, what they think I've done, or how they think I've lived. And it's time to start speaking up. You took an innocent mom away from her babies. This means war. But Phil, very conspicuously absent from there is any mention of her husband, any sentiment of grief or sorrow. Ironic because she wrote a book about grief. What do you make of it? What would, I mean, if you were her attorney, I know you're a detective, and she doesn't have an attorney right now. Is this a mistake to be saying these things to Dateline?
Well, of course it is. And this may be part of the conflict between her and her now departed attorney. This woman it's pretty clear that she is so self-absorbed that she thinks she is going to be able to talk her way out of this. And the evidence is going to be what the evidence is, and it's pretty powerful. And so if we go with the euphemism about a lawyer who has himself as a client, as a fool for a client. So this is much the same kind of thing here. She's thinking that, and I'm just basing this on what she has said, and the fact that her lawyer has ditched her. She thinks that she can, and she said it, right? I've been holding back for a year, and and now I'm ready to get out there, and I'm going to represent myself, by golly. Well, good luck with that. I've never seen anything work out when the defendant takes that kind of an attitude. So, yeah. You can, go from look at Ted Bundy as an example. Smart guy, good-looking guy. In fact, and he represented himself, and part of that, and the judge himself commented on the fact that he did represent himself well. But we all know where Ted is today. So when these folks think that they're all of a sudden they're going to stand up, by golly, and they're going to tell their story. It's never smart to do that. And I've been involved in cases, and certainly now since I'm working for defense attorneys, where I would agree that the client being placed on the stand is the right thing to do. And then I have had numerous cases where, no, golly, no, do not put them on that stand. They're their own worst enemy. And she, it's pretty clear, has decided that regardless of whether she's her own worst enemy or not, by golly, she's going to get out and she's going to tell everybody what really happened, who she really is. So, good for her. I hope, let's see how that works out for her.
Yeah. The troll who said that we talk too much about other things, I purposely am putting this up here. We talk about some of the most random things on this show, which is why I love Fridays. I really want to lean into that photo and I want to kiss Nugget right on that nose of his. Jessica says, I'm craving Doritos. How odd. Scott Duffy, will you ever get a hankering for Doritos and then run over to your favorite Wawa and get a bag?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the problem with Wawas. I'm surrounded by them, and they're too easy to get. Especially the Cool Ranch Doritos is my go-to.
Yeah,
I like the spicy Doritos, the spicy nacho.
Is that the
and I like the originals. In fact, last week, since you brought Doritos up, we always make our Costco Walmart run in Daytona to supply us with food. And so I was able to obtain my Costco-sized Doritos bag of original Doritos. Yeah. It is freaking huge. It's like 10 pounds of Doritos that will last.
Phil, will you bite into a Dorito and give the corner to Nugget?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because
people are going to get upset about this because I will do that. But people get mad.
That's what I did last night, as a matter of fact. It's funny that you said that. Yeah. That's exactly what I did last night. Now, we're not feeding her. But we do give her these little,
you got to. But people are going to send us hate mail. I do the same thing. I just can't look at their eyes and not do it. By the way, every time I go away, this was true when I was in the news business. I would always get just crazy calls from the COE with either my kid fell off the bed and cracked her nose, or there was one time, literally, the COE had the SWAT team at our house in Washington, D.C. I think I've mentioned this before. And then she's like, they were kind of cute. So I just kept talking to them, even though it turned out it was just the door was blown open. So there's like 12 SWAT guys in our house. She's taking photos, sending them to me. Just random things like that happen. So there was a horrific story. This is actually national news. So the first day I'm on the road for this trip, she called horrific stories. A friend of my daughter's. So my daughter goes to school, and her older sister was actually just killed in a hit and run boating accident in Miami. A little beautiful 14, 15-year-old girl whose entire life. And as you can imagine, the family is beyond devastation. So was thinking of them, but got a little less significant call just 2 days ago. I'll post it on Instagram at Surviving the Survivor. It was my beloved Frederick Morris Roosevelt Brown, the newest addition to our family. The COE calls me in hysterics. He woke up and Fred Brown could not open either of his eyes. He had some conjunctivitis, another word for eye jam in his eyeballs, and the COE said, I'm going straight to the vet. I would have just cleaned his little eyeballs out. So Fred Brown is now on some eye drops. They gave a soft cone in case but he didn't mind the eye drops, and now his eyes are perfectly fine. So needless to say, whenever I go away, there's drama, and this was no different this time around. The dog and the feet are creeping me out. Show has a strange energy to. I'm not going to lie. It was Catherine says in Maui, welcome home, Phil. So from one Hawaiian to another. Shivani says Ted Bundy studied law. Corey Richins studied at Home Depot, which is a funny comment and I guess a very true one. So Scott Duffy, we're on to the less talked about news of the week, true crime catch up, the weird stories. Lucy Letby, Scott Duffy, she's an infamous serial killer out of the UK. She was just denied permission to appeal her convictions. She was convicted of killing 7 infants, 5 boys and 2 girls, and also attempting to murder 6 others at the Countess of Chester Hospital back in 2015 and 2016. Her trial lasted 6 months. It ended with convictions in all of them in August of 2023. She was injecting these babies with insulin or force feeding them milk to make them sick, too much milk. Scott Duffy, number one, I always ask you this. I'll ask you again. Does this surprise you? Number two, why do some people have these really evil proclivities?
So first, no, it doesn't surprise me, and it's because it's a different location, but these and was she a nurse or was
She was a nurse? A nurse, yes, a nurse supposed to be taking care of the infants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've seen this time and time again. These and I know as a result of these nurses who traveled that different hospitals, they're let go for one employee issue over another, and then of course victims have died. It's unexplained, but they don't get investigated until they do, and then law enforcement has to backtrack, and so similar to law enforcement, similar to teachers, or anybody that works with youths and so forth, if they're jumping from state to state, job to job, that should be looked at, and so that's what you have. I don't think I can figure out enough of why people like this who seek these licenses. They obviously have the intelligence to go to school and then to turn into these monsters of sorts, the terrible harm that they do, the suffering that the thought of mercy killing. They'll quietly go to sleep, especially with vulnerable, elderly, sick patients who may be coming close to the end, and then you get these individuals that feel like they're going to help them and avoid suffering and calling these mercy killings, and of course they're not, and there's usually a lot of suffering that goes into it, no different than this nurse in England. So it's with these infants, it's I don't know. If I could figure it out, I would be in a different business trying to sell whatever it is to stop these people from doing what they do. But yeah.
And Scott Duffy, let me ask you, because you look at Corey Richins and if you see a picture of Lucy Letby, these are 2 women who are very benign looking. They look very almost sweet, innocent.
Yeah, unassuming. Sure. Yeah.
Have you learned in your career never to judge a book by its cover? The most unassuming person could be the most evil. Is that not true?
Yep. Yeah.
From Sunny Spirit, I did get emails. I apologize to everyone. I'm behind just because we've been nonstop on the go, but I'm going to respond to everyone in due time. I love this comment from Misbelieving. Friday shows are for the soulmates of STS. So we love the sidetracks to learn more about our 3 faves. There's always more to learn. So we just heard about babies being killed. Nothing worse than that. But then you've got a guy named Billy Shemermere. This is in your neck of the woods, your old neck of the woods, Phil, your other neck of the woods. He was convicted in the slayings of 2 elderly women at a high-end Texas retirement home and indicted for the killings of 20 more. He was just recently murdered in prison, and Paramount is releasing a docuseries on this case, the Pillowcase Murders. What he would do is he would asphyxiate them, these old, vulnerable patients, and then steal their valuables, including at one point $30,000 worth of jewelry in just one case. Smothering leaves little evidence of foul play. The only reason he was caught, Phil Waters, is one of his patients somehow survived the smothering. Again, same questions to you. Does it surprise you? And what is going on with this level of evil that someone can, the most vulnerable people, on the one hand, you've got babies in the first story, and here you've got the elderly and basically assisted living. How can someone target these people, Phil Waters?
Well, because they see themselves as some sort of angels of mercy. And in their judgment, these people, rather than in their view, suffering, that it's better for them, their patients, for them to remove them from the planet. So it's a very convoluted psychopathy that get these people thinking that somehow they're doing something that benefits the people that they're murdering. It's an interesting study into human behavior, but they believe they're on a mission, to quote the Blues Brothers, on a mission from God.
Yeah, it's one of the things I'm interested in true crime from sort of the psychological aspect, and I just can never understand what is going on in the minds of these people. One of the things, just coming full circle, looking at Phil's beautiful feet, looking at Nugget, and we were talking about Doritos. It is true that sometimes a dog's feet will smell like Doritos. I've actually seen story. Have you ever heard this? You look confused, Scott Duffy. You've never seen this.
Did you see my dog confusion?
Yeah, that was your
dog impersonation.
Yeah. But let me tell you something.
I will say that I have never thought that it smelled like Doritos.
Really? Well, let me tell you something.
Can I get some clarity here? Are we talking about a dog's feet?
Yeah. So one time I remember.
Well, I don't know. I don't mean to interrupt.
Not your feet, though. Not your feet.
I don't know that I've ever had a time where I was even drawn to smell any of my dog's feet, let alone be curious about what they might have smelled like. So I'm not even sure where this comes from, Joel, but
well, you're not the only one.
I'm getting a little concerned. Scott, you and I will have to talk later off camera.
Yeah. But look.
This may need some intervention on our part, Scott.
So I used to periodically smell Mabel's feet. I would check her paws, Lindsay Shea says, never heard that, but also never sniffed my dog's foot. But look, suddenly, Jessica says, not Doritos, Fritos. And then Catherine says, in Maui, it is true. Dogs get yeast infection in their feet. You can Google this, Phil and Scott. You can Google Dorito dog feet, and it will give you a whole explanation as to why their feet smell like Doritos. I happen to love it because I also like Doritos / Fritos. But
you're not nibbling on their nails, are you?
No.
I'm not. We were just talking about the psychopathy of these people that are murdering these people. I'm not sure there's something going on here, Scott. We need to talk.
You know what? I could take this to another level right now, but I would be really concerned for myself. But I'll put it this way. Mabel would never turn anything down food-wise. The only thing I ever saw her not eat in her lifetime, in her complete whole entirety of her life, was a chocolate malt ball. But I'm not going to say that Mabel did not have an affinity to a human toenail periodically. She ate it all. She loved a lot of things. And look at Misbelieving. We are now off the rails. Yes. So let me move on from here. But I was exceptionally close with Mabel Rose, maybe too close. Analytical Blarney, she's not talking about you, Phil, but she says feet are gross. Bonnie Lee Lopez does have the vomit emoji. Tiff Knox says, I love it too, Joel. I really liked it. And look at this. I've had Doritos that smell like dog feet. Yes. So
I like it.
Look at this. And Rachel J. I mean, I'm just bringing out the truth, the things that people are afraid to say out loud. Joel, I've been noticing my dog feet smell like corn chips. I was thinking about taking her to the vet. It's just like a little fungus. I'm telling you, Google Doritos / Fritos and dog feet. You'll get a whole lot of information. But, you know, on Mabel Rose, there was not a thing about her. You know, even in her elder years, she started to get little old like warts and stuff because she's an old lady. And I loved her with her warts and all. So anyway, here's another one. I was into like these weird. This next story you'll understand. So this guy, he's in New Mexico, and he's just been charged for trying to burn down Scott Duffy, a California preschool, while the children and staff were inside. Later that same day, he attempted to set fire to a strip mall a mile away. His name is Jonathan Barajas Nava, charged with 2 counts of attempted destruction of property. He was igniting a flammable liquid at the entrance of Retreat Church and Yucaipa Christian Preschool in Yucaipa, California, and then tried to pour this same flammable liquid on a strip mall. Believe it or not, the officers instructed this guy once they tracked him down to get out of the car, and he caught fire. It's unclear whether he lit himself on fire or because he had the liquid all over him and something ignited it. His legs were covered in flames. Scott Duffy, does this surprise you? And what is this arsonist fetish here that this guy was literally trying to light a school, a daycare center on fire with children inside? What is wrong with the world?
So no, unfortunately, it is unfortunate when they don't surprise me. They all sound bad, but I've heard of something like that before. So arson is a very interesting. The arsonist is a very interesting, very similar mental pattern, behavior and whatnot, and so it would be interesting to know if this person, first of all, their age. You know, we're all fascinated by fire.
38. He's 38 years
38. And I wonder, yeah, I would be very interested to know his mental health, previous behaviors, and if he had no indicators before. You know, it's not out of the ordinary for someone to pursue a life, especially as a volunteer firefighter, and then to be setting fires, to be first on scene, etc. So it'd be interesting to see what the aspects, if he finally was interviewed, because I'm not so sure that, for example, the school and the children was necessarily the target versus this was what he comes to, because then he switches to a strip mall. So there are things that I would be very interested to ask, and what, but there is that whether it is a fantasy, that this whole fascination, whether it be serial killing or serial burglars. There are people who love breaking in, just watching you sleep, and it escalates. There's a constant
creepy. That's
escalation.
creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it'd be interesting to see what the charges are, and how, because they're very serious in nature. And if the charges kind of, are not dealt with, and he's not going to be going away for some period of time, then what's going to happen then when he gets out, if it's not properly dealt with mental health wise, as well as the criminal justice system? Yeah. I just saw the The Pyromania, absolutely. It is a fascination. It comes, early. I mean, I remember my own, hey, there's fire, and how does fire, it's just a fascination. And then you get burned once, and that's it. That's for some they learn, and then others it's whoa.
Yeah.
Like
Well, Scott, I'm glad you ended up on the right side of the thin blue line, Scott Duffy, with that fire fascination. Look at this from Canine Catherine, supporting me even more. She's the one woman that would. Google proof: dogs' feet can smell like Fritos or corn chips due to a natural phenomenon called Frito feet. This smell is caused by bacteria and yeast. So, a few moments ago, I was being laughed at, and now Google is coming to my defense here, and I feel good. So, I'm about to. There's a pre-story. I'm getting tired because I'm exhausted, so we're going to wrap it up quickly. So, I decided to, being fair and balanced, the journalist that I am, I have included a horrific story about a Jewish guy, Eric Weinberg. He's the mini Harvey Weinstein. This guy. He's the former producer for the show Scrubs. If you ever watched Scrubs. He also executive produced something else that was big, and I can't seem to find it right now. But Phil Waters, he is facing many charges of forcible. It rhymes with gape, starts with the letter R. I don't want to say it on the YouTube, but he was initially taken into custody by police in mid-2022 over a dozen claims that he forcibly did this to women. He was initially released on a $3.2 million bond. Later, it was raised to $5 million, and then eventually it was revoked. The question to you is, why do you find these highly successful people? I mean, running Scrubs, a super popular show. You got Harvey Weinstein, and what he would do was he would leverage his Hollywood power and say, send me videos, do such and such favors for me, and I'll get you on the show. And then he would pin them down and do things that no man should do to a woman. What's going on here, Phil, psychologically speaking? You've got Weinstein, you've got this guy. Why do they think that they are, that they are above the law, and that they, coming from these high profile, powerful positions, that they can just do whatever they want?
Well, I don't even think it's an issue of them thinking they're above the law. I think that they're driven by, look, that Mecca, that Hollywood stuff, the movie stuff, all that kind of stuff, it draws people to it that work within an industry that are very attractive. They want to be attractive. They have a particular audience, and they know that sex sells. So they get themselves in a position where now they are striving for success in terms of money and power. And when they find themselves in positions where they can affect a person's future in that industry, they realize that I can not only affect the outcome for them, but I can satisfy and satiate my own personal hedonistic desires. So a couple of things are accomplished. They get satisfied in a carnal way, and it serves to make them feel more powerful because they have, they're holding the future of a person, at least in that industry, in the palm of their hands. And the people that are coming in there, they want something from these people. What do they want? They want a role. They want a future in the film industry. And so there's a quid pro quo that takes place. And the guys with the power to make this happen for this person over here, they're using that power and their position to, again, to satisfy their desires, their hedonistic desires. And sometimes the folks that are in there, if they succumb to it, sometimes they're not getting what they're being promised. So they're just being used by these people in power for their own personal satiation. So, and those people, of course, can be destroyed because of this. And then you have some people that do go on to be successful, and it turns out in the long run, it's because they were talented people in the first place. But the door to get to that spot, at least at that point in time in their lives, was seen through these people in power, like this guy or like Weinstein. And the sad part of this whole kind of mecca that surprises me is that the people within that industry, whatever position they are, whether they're superstars, whether they're bit role people, whether they are actors that are hardworking actors that earn a lot of stuff, but not necessarily the superstar actors, the Oscar winners, that kind of thing. And all the other producers and directors, everybody involved in that industry, they all know what's going on.
Yep. Yeah.
That's what's always surprised me. They all know what's going on.
Yeah. The Weinstein was an open secret.
Oh, golly. And you got all sorts of people trying to glom onto these people. I mean, look, you got everybody from, on the Weinstein thing. I mean, you got political figures trying to get, the Clintons were all up into the Weinstein thing and all these other things. So, I mean, to just be, I'll tell you what, and this is not something that just happened in the last 10 years, 20 years. Back in the heyday, when the motion picture industry began to become the industry that it is now today, when it started to become that, Joe Kennedy, the Kennedy's patriarch, Joe Kennedy bought a studio. I think it may have been RKO, but he bought a movie studio. And you know why he bought it? Not to make any money. He bought it because he would have access to all of the all of the actresses, all of the starlets that would have to come through that process to just get a role in a picture. So he used it to satisfy his own carnal cravings. And of course, he passed all that down to his boys. But so it's not something new. It's been that way, and unfortunately, you have an industry that it's all about egos. It's all about how you look. It's about how you present. It's how do you satisfy all of those things? How do you draw people to it, to watch those movies, and of course, to make money. The more money you make, the more successful you are. From the terms of the producers and the people that run Hollywood, they become more powerful, and then they believe that they can just move around and do what they want to do unencumbered by the law or by anything else, by any kind of control, any outside forces. So, this guy, he's just like Weinstein. He's one that got caught. Finally, somebody said that's enough. And they did what they did, but this kind of stuff's very revealing. At least it is to me in the dynamic of that particular industry.
Yeah, it's turns into a vicious cycle. Look at this from Lee in Maine. I really enjoyed the three of you, also different. Joel equals intense and slightly crazy. Scott equals calm, and Phil a little bit of both. Perfect mixture for the three of us to have. Scott and I were walking up the stairs. I had to get my boys some Phillies gear and my girls, even though I didn't really get my girls anything. I did get the COE something, but going to the Phillies store, and Scott and I were talking about the podcast, and we were walking up those stairs away from the dugout seats. And I looked at the cheering crowd, the tens of thousands, and I said, Scott, when we are the Super Bowl halftime show, it'll be double this crowd, double. So prepare yourself. And he said, I'm ready. And that was it. That's all I needed to hear. Only one of us, Scott Duffy, was in the seminary, and that was you. You almost became a priest if it wasn't for the FBI. A priest was just arrested. He is reported to have bitten a woman during communion at a Central Florida church. Officers from the St. Cloud Police Department in Florida arrested a priest. He's identified as Father Fidel. He got in an altercation with a woman during Mass. And police have recommended that now the priest be charged with battery. It happened at St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church. According to the charging affidavit, police said that the woman had attended Mass to participate in her niece's communion. But when she went up to receive the bread, the priest allegedly refused to give it to her, claiming that she hadn't completed the necessary steps to get it. The woman told the priest that she had done so and was now accepted by God. The priest became enraged and tried to stuff the bread in her mouth, per the affidavit. The woman then tried to grab another piece in his hand when he grabbed her and bit her arm, Scott Duffy. Your reaction to this, that's all I can ask. Your reaction to this. Does this surprise you? A priest biting a parishioner, a priest biting a parishioner. You're rubbing your eyes. Does it surprise you that a priest would bite a parishioner over communion?
I will say that it surprise. That catches me off guard. I'm not quite sure how to. But when you said it initially, I have all sorts of thoughts. Where's this story going?
Yeah. Well,
Like
it went
what?
right where you. Yeah.
And I would not have thought it would have been during a communion or a mistaken. As a priest places the host, which in our faith believe, right, the body of Christ, and when a priest is placing that, more so to their older population or whatnot, that received on their tongue, and there are different ways, different faiths and whatnot. It could be by a spoon in the Eastern churches and whatnot. That you receive on a spoon and tilt your head back, or in your hand, the host on your hand. And so I think, okay, so he's going to put the host in somebody's mouth, but if I could see somebody biting the priest, but then for the priest to bite back, it all
He
depends.
didn't bite him, in fairness to her. He only bit her.
I'm not sure where to go, but it also sounds like a defense, some sort of argument. It just doesn't sound. It sounds like two people are having a bad day, and a perfect storm takes place, and tit for tat. But then she's reaching. If what sounds to be right, she's reaching. I could see the priest being protective, not necessarily, and then for all intents and purposes, he's holding what we call the ciborium. And if he's holding, he has nothing left. He can't push back and whatnot. So maybe that's the only thing he has in his mind is to bite. Hey, get back. So I could see this being, a bad display of priestly behavior, a bad display on the communicant's part. But I don't see it as bad as it sounds if he's simply defending what we believe in the Catholic Church to be very sacred moment.
Yeah,
That would be my wish for what.
There you go. Space Coast, who went to a Catholic school out in on the West Coast. LMAO. This is hilarious. Gen X Granny says nothing surprises me in 2024. Someone wanted to know if the priest thought she tasted like a Dorito. And look,
that would only come about if he had bitten her feet, right? Is that what I understand?
It wasn't a foot; it was the upper arm, I believe. But it would have been amazing. It would have been the most amazing thing if he bit her feet and it smelled like Doritos. We would have come completely full circle. Miranda Lee, on a serious note here, says Catholics believe that the bread is the actual body of Christ. So
Correct, Miranda. Yep.
Yeah, so they were messing with the wrong bread here, and she got bitten as a result. Speaking of bitten, two more super quick stories. Phil Waters, a man says he suspects that someone attempted murder. And I'll tell you why. His name is Elijah Bowles. Of course, he's in Florida too. He's a truck driver. He was in 29 Palms, California, in the Mojave Desert near the Joshua Tree National Park. He had just picked up a package that was delivered to him. He's in the truck with a passenger. She opens the box and throws the box in his direction, completely stunned. What is in the box that was delivered to him but a rattlesnake? The 60-year-old truck driver pulls over, places this box on the ground, and opens it with a stick. He estimated the snake, which is a rattlesnake, to be at least 2 feet in length. He calls animal control officers. The investigation now being handled by the U.S. Postal Inspector. What's quite amazing is that very day at his home address, another rattlesnake was sent to his home. The snake was put into a box with cotton everywhere so you couldn't hear the rattle. I assume the first thing you and your partners at Houston PD, if this was your case, you would probably hysterically laugh. But once you were done laughing, this is no joking matter. A rattlesnake could kill a person. 2 different packages, 2 different rattlesnakes. How serious is this or not, Bill Waters?
Well, it's serious. But my first question is, well, who'd he piss off?
Yeah, he doesn't know. He said, look, I'm just a truck driver. He doesn't know. Are there people? I mean, we do remember. You remember the Unabomber? He was just sending crazy. Are there people crazy enough to just send someone a rattlesnake? And now the next time I open a package, I've got to be on my, I've got to have my alert on, you know?
Yeah, but the Unabomber was sending stuff to people that were kind of in line with his particular ideology, right? If I remember right. I'm just curious as why this, we never know the backstory, right? So I would imagine this truck driver must have some idea that why somebody would do this. I mean, who knows? Maybe. Of course, they've got his home address. Perhaps he made somebody mad on the road somewhere, and they were so mad that they followed him and got his license plate number and were able to track him down and figure out what his home address was and that kind of thing. And I mean, who knows? It may be some crazy road rage thing for all we know. But
now, Phil, like, would you, if you're investigating this, how do you take this seriously? Like, you'd have to follow all these steps and actually investigate this to the end?
Well, of course you would. I mean, if the guy, unless he's sending the stuff to himself, unless he's trying to, for whatever reason, he wants to get up, get his 15 minutes of fame. So what's the best way to do it? Do something unusual. Send myself a rattlesnake. So, I mean, who knows? But I would be. What was the location this occurred?
29 Palms, which I've been to. It's basically outside of Palm Springs in California. Nice area.
Well, 29 Palms is a Marine Corps base. So
yeah, it's right near there. Yep, right there.
Yeah. Interesting.
Does that surprise you, Phil?
What?
That someone would send 2 boxes of 2 rattlesnakes?
No, not at all. I mean, there have been people that put the rattlesnakes actually in the mailbox. So they just got creative and
shipped them
and put them in the box and sent them off. So, I mean, you can track where the packages came from, right? I mean, they were sent through the mail. Is that what
it's a postal inspector. They're investigating the postal.
Yeah, so the postal inspector. And by the way, the postal inspectors, do you know that they are the oldest federal law enforcement agency?
I had no idea. But by the way, the other night I watched.
They call themselves. Let me finish here.
Please do.
They call themselves the Silent Service.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. Just a little.
No, I watched a movie. Phil, I watched a movie that you would like the other day on Netflix called The Highwaymen with Kevin Costner and what's his name? I like him, Woody Harrelson. It's the true story of hunting down Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah, I've seen that now.
And he was the most decorated Texas Ranger ever.
Yeah.
Jody Johnson.
Frank Hamer? Hamer?
Frank Hamer, yeah. Have Phil's feet been in the picture the whole time? I just noticed them. We've been talking about them. Olive Green with perhaps the best question. Who has access to so many rattlesnakes? If you go to Tucson, Arizona, you'll find them there. Finally, a positive comment here. Love STS and Friday Friends. And a final story, and then we wrap.
Well, I think Scott may be getting a little leery about the feet because he keeps moving further back into the room.
Yeah. He's worried about the Doritos feet. Yeah. NJ Cool Chick pointing this out. By the way, NJ Cool Chick is a very cool chick. I met her in New York City. She was awesome. With like 15 minutes ago before we were speaking, there was like 3 people in the room. It ended up being like over 100, I believe. And NJ Cool Chick was kind enough to just corral random, like custodians to fill the room. So I appreciate her. Joel, the Unabomber selected people who were advancing technology in some way, which he was adamantly against. Yeah, he had a cause, I guess. Twisted, maybe. Final story has nothing to do with true crime. I just wanted to get Phil and Scott's take. There's a town in Thailand that is being overrun. It's called Lopburi in Thailand by its ever-growing population of marauding wild monkeys. But now the town has launched an offensive against the simian raiders. They're using trickery and ripe tropical fruit, Phil Waters, to lure them behind fenced areas. They're baiting them into these cages. They are just overtaking the town. And my question to you, Phil, would you prefer these marauding little monkeys or humans? Because I was thinking I'd rather just let the monkeys run wild and put the humans behind the cages. What do you think?
Well, I think that's just kind of a distinction without a difference, right? Monkey, human, So quite a problem they've got there.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. So they're going to cage these monkeys, and then where do they take them?
That is unclear. It's somewhere out in Thailand, so I don't know the details. But
so my guess is that these monkeys, every time we talk about monkeys, I'm always reminded of the what was it, the Pink Panther, Peter Sellers' character, Inspector Clouseau, when the guy walks up and he's standing there holding the monkey that's got the organ grinder thing on it, and the guy walks up and says, "Does your monkey bite?" And Peter Sellers says, "No," and he says he goes to pet it, and the monkey bites him, and he says, "I thought you said your monkey didn't bite," and he says, "It's not my minky." Great line. So his
da 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 da. Oh, is that James Bond or is that Pink Panther? I don't know.
No, that was Pink Panther. So my thought is that unless if they're caging him and then shipping him off someplace, my guess is those monkeys are going to return from whence they came.
Yeah.
So you're just perpetuating the problem. I'm thinking that they probably need to go out there and get up on the ridge someplace with a high-powered rifle and start taking out minkies.
Yeah. By the way, during my storied journalism career, I did a story. People don't know this, but when you land, by the way, is the book tour in Carm coming to Ann Arbor? The short answer is I would love it to. One of my best friends is from Ann Arbor. I'm working on it, Miranda. We'll get there, I promise. Carm's like I'm done with book touring, but she's just saying that because she's tired. But during my standout stellar journalism career, one of the stories I did, when you land in Fort Lauderdale, a lot of people don't know this, but there is someone brought some monkeys to the Fort Lauderdale area like 60 years ago. And over time, they have reproduced. And there's all kinds of monkeys that live in and around the Fort Lauderdale airport in a town called Dania Beach. And I did a story on them because they are now putting them into some kind of refuge to keep them safe with all the planes landing and the craziness and the overbuilding. Space Coast I couldn't have said it better. People came for the true crime, but stayed for the feet. That's how we do it here on Fridays. That's how we do it. That was Scott Duffy. I have to ask you, would you prefer monkeys in your town or humans?
Ooh.
My vote is for monkeys.
Yeah, is there a third choice?
Third, chinchillas, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, then okay, chinchillas. Yep.
There
Yeah,
you
I don't
go.
know. Like, I don't know what the what type of monkeys these are. These marauding.
Yeah, just
Like, are
marauding
they
monkeys.
vicious?
They're like the little monkeys, like just running around. They could probably rip your arm out of your socket because monkeys have crazy strength. But yeah. But these monkeys the other ones live near the Fort Lauderdale airport. So it is Friday. I have no idea what day it is. You all know I've been on the road for 2 weeks. I'm delirious. I'm hungry. I'm tired. My adrenaline is running out. I'm going to crash. I'm probably going to go into the fetal position in my closet and rock back and forth. Phil Waters, what's your plan? You're back on the Big Island. It's usually pizza night on Fridays. What are you going to do?
It is pizza night on Fridays. We spent the last couple of weeks getting everything back up to speed, and life is good. We just eradicated a feral pig from our property, so he has been dispatched. He will be sausage shortly.
I have a follow-up. How was he dispatched? That makes me sad. I feel bad for this pig. Pigs are actually very smart animals.
Well, this is a feral pig, and they're not the most not the happiest animal on the planet anyway.
Please tell me he did not stare down the barrel of your 45, Phil.
No. That was the thought. I certainly thought about that, and he was following the horses around, which was kind of weird. So he thought he was a horse, I guess. But I was down at the gate talking to the horses, Hitman and G, and I noticed as they were walking toward me that he's over in the pasture, our neighbors, who has not brush hogged this area. So this is a perfect nesting place for these pigs. But anyway, they're walking down the fence line, and I look behind Hitman and G, and here's that pig. He's walking right behind him. And then he stopped when he saw me, and then he turned and whoop, and he took off. So we have some other neighbors over here that actually hunt these feral pigs. And so I got with them, and a young man named Kalani got in there after a couple of days of searching. And
did you say his name is Kalanick?
No, Kalani.
Oh, Kalani. Okay. I think it's a Kalanick. By the way, Phil, I never interrupt, but I will real quick. Monday, we're doing a Karen Reed trial tour with Boston lawyers.
Joe, are you going to let me answer your question?
Go ahead, Phil. Go ahead.
Okay, so your question was, how was the pig dispatched?
Yes.
He was dispatched with a bow.
Whoa. Who fired the bow?
Kalani.
Oh, Kalani did. Okay.
Yeah. So now go on and
from what distance? From what distance?
Well, they had to get up on him. He was in the nest. He was up there nesting. So I don't know, probably 30 feet, 25, 30 feet, 40 feet. He didn't move. He didn't get alarmed. So, and the dog had him pretty much. They used a dog and kind of got it in spot, and there you go.
We've now turned into the Joe Rogan podcast. That's stuff he talked about. Now Tiff Knox says Joel needs a Snickers. I saw Black Widor. She says Widder, but I say Widor from the Republic of Ireland. Said that earlier, and I just assumed that Snickers was some kind of Irish Gaelic word or whatever the language is there, because I'm ignorant.
It's a candy bar, Joel. It's a candy bar.
But I guess she was just talking about a candy bar. So Phil is having pizza. Scott Duffy, it seems like yesterday that we had dinner, which it was. We had dinner yesterday,
we
and
did.
you played some golf today. You're looking very relaxed. You're looking just ready to attack the weekend. By the way, it is Memorial Day weekend. Happy Memorial Day weekend to everyone.
Yes.
Next career, I will become a detective or an agent because Scott has a beach house. Phil has multiple Ferraris and a home on the Big Island. I'm at my sister's, begging for food in a few minutes. So Scott Duffy, you told me something interesting. You don't go to the beach on holiday weekends because there's just too much traffic. I find that amazing.
Yeah, but so my wife and daughter are down there. They braved the traffic, but they went at a decent hour. But it's tradition. I think this is my 33rd year. I play in a charity golf tournament every Friday before Memorial Day. It is in honor of a police officer who was killed in 1988 by the name of Officer Ed Setzer, and he was killed while trying to take into custody a burglar. So he was shot with his own gun. Yeah.
Oh, that's horrific.
So that was in 1988, and then of course the department, like many departments, who have officers who have suffered the ultimate sacrifice, try to have charitable events. In our case, a golf tournament. So initially, it's to raise funds for. He had 3 small children and a wife, and then as the years develop, and still in his honor, to support many children, and especially college scholarships for all the police officers. So it's a good thing, and so I participate in that. I stay away from going down to the shore, but I do like traveling midweek when not so many people are traveling.
Now, let me ask you a question out of jealousy. I'm actually kind of solo this weekend, but are your boys home, or are you just you have?
Yep.
They are.
Yep.
Okay.
My son graduated from college last weekend, so it's
congratulations.
Thank you. And now I imagine he's looking for employment.
Yeah, he's going to take a little time to do that. Can't blame him. From Just Kidding, and then we're going to say goodbye. Reality is, this is a harsh reality, that everything eats something or someone. There's good evidence that plants are sentient. What you going to do? Phil, do you believe that plants are sentient creatures, that they are aware and, I don't know, alive? I mean, they're obviously alive, but is there more to plants than we know, Phil? That's my question.
Well, I'd say the simple answer there is yes. I think that many things are affected by the way we treat them. So I think there's something given that. I mean, when you're taking care of plants, when you're tending plants, if you don't water them, they're going to die. I mean, and that's all, we can make that leap. It's all about how we treat other people. The golden rule, right? Treat everybody like you like to be treated. So
correct.
And by the way, that's out of the Bible for all of you that are already getting your pennies in a wad of what I just said. And let me make a quick comment here in closing about Memorial Day.
Yeah.
So Memorial Day is the day that we honor veterans, men and women who have sacrificed the ultimate sacrifice, who have died so that we can enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy. And there is a distinction between that day, Memorial Day, and Veterans Day. Veterans Day is the day that we celebrate and honor veterans that have served and those that are currently serving. So do not say to a veteran on Memorial Day, thank you for your service. That's not what Memorial Day is about. So it's to honor those that have given their lives so that we can sit here and have these types of discussions at any time in this country, the greatest country on the face of the planet that's ever been blessed to this world.
Phil, I can't add anything other than what Scott just did. Amen. Look at this comment from Allison Reiterfeld. Right as Phil was saying this, technically Memorial Day is the only day you don't thank a service person for their service. I never knew this. till today, but now I do, and I will look at the day differently. Thank you to Phil for his service as a Marine, even though I'm not supposed to say it, but it's technically not Memorial Day, so I just said it before Memorial Day, so I won't get in trouble. And again, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're doing Karen Reed shows and maybe some additional shows if Sky Lazaro wants to come on. Also, got to catch up on some stuff with the Long Island serial killer. It is great to be back, albeit exhausted. I'm going to now go into my closet and weep that I'm coming down from the high of a book tour. But we're going to Crime Con next week. I'm going to hang with Scott. So that's keeping me in good spirits. Until then, love you, man.